Dinopod.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Dinopod. Today we've got our two usual co-hosts,
Rita
and Tim.
So we're covering a very hard-hitting topic, one that most people are going to know and remember, I imagine, who are listening to this, which is the September 11th attacks, commonly known as 9/11. So, what do you guys already know about 9/11? Just briefly, do you know what happened? Do you kind of get an idea what happened?
Well, they were the terrorist attacks on the World Center Towers, commonly known as the Twin Towers.
Yep.
And they also attacked the Pentagon or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
And wasn't there one more plane which Pastor managed to get hold of and ground?
There was,
Yes.
Yeah. So, do you guys remember 9/11 taking place?
I would have been...
And if so, how old were you?
I would have been 4.5 at the time.
Me and Mitchell, would have been 4 and 6 days.
Oh yeah, we would have
Yeah.
been. Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember. I was having lunch.
Okay, that's very descriptive.
And I remember what lunch was.
Really?
I do, yeah.
What did you have for your lunch?
It was cod and what's it called in English?
Chips.
Wait, no.
Sure, this wasn't.
Chickpeas.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Are you sure this isn't your Christmas dinner?
It's not. No,
Are you sure?
I'm sure. I'm Portuguese. We eat cod every other day.
I
Seriously.
don't know.
I'm serious.
My question to the people listening: is it weird to have fish for your Christmas dinner?
No, it's not.
Yes.
Portuguese people, back me up.
I mean, if I see in the comments from other countries that they have fish,
Oh, you think we're gonna have comments?
yeah. If people comment to say that yes, in their country that they have something else other than traditional, chicken, some turkey, whatever
that's traditional
meat.
for you. For me, that's fucking weird.
So comment below on this 9/11 podcast about Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
We're already off topic, so
That was fast.
that was very fast.
Yeah.
So
See, I remember very vividly what happened.
So explain your story. So what do you remember? Like every bit of detail.
Well, I remember having lunch,
Yep.
cod and chickpeas, and I remember on TV the attack, seeing the tower. I think I saw them fall, and I remember that a neighbor came in and knocked and asked, "Have you seen what's happening?" or something like that.
Oh wow!
To my nanny/cousin.
So
That's what I remember.
So you actually saw it live on TV.
I think it was
Let
live.
me
It
rephrase
should
that.
be live.
You saw what you thought was live on TV. Falling.
Probably around 12 on Portugal. That was around 9 in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been either live or very recent transmission.
No, I'm more talking about the conspiracy tin hat already.
Come on! I'm pretty sure I saw the towers fell on TV. If that was live,
you think you saw it?
I don't know if that was live or if it was just a recording of what happened afterwards. I don't know. Let's not get into the conspiracy right away.
I remember I must have been off school that day. I remember sitting there seeing it on TV.
Wait, you went to school at 4?
Yeah.
When you were 4?
Yes, that's when you start school. But yeah, I
Oh, that's preschool, right?
yeah, like foundation.
That means nothing.
I'm just gonna let Tim talk.
Sorry, go on.
I remember I was sitting there and I didn't quite understand what was going on at first. I remember it was my parents sitting me down and telling me there's been a really bad accident.
Oh, nobody sat me down. Like,
Well, because I must have been, quite confused at what I was seeing. But all I remember is my parents sitting me down and telling me there's been a very bad accident because they don't want to worry me. But I remember being young and seeing all that happen live on TV. Cause it must have been live because in the UK, every channel went to the live feed of that.
Yeah, it must have been live.
I don't remember. This is why I'm trying to prod you guys.
What do you remember then?
Nothing.
You don't remember anything?
No, my brothers do. My middle brother, he said he remembered being at school at the time, and they found out that something bad happened. They all switched over to TV, and he remembers seeing it. But I was too young, and
Well, not too young, because we were exactly the same age. And I remember.
if I'm honest, I don't remember any of it, like it happening.
That's interesting.
I don't know if it was kind of like I didn't watch TV that day, or I was too busy on my Game Boy or something. And I
Maybe
didn't
we were
even...
just watching cartoons.
Well, I mean, at that time, I was probably either at playgroup, where they obviously if you're at playgroup, they ain't gonna go right. Let's watch this horrific accident because you're all gonna freak the kids out.
Yeah.
It was either that, or I was at home whilst my mum was at work, and if that was the case, the last thing I'm putting on is the news.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
probably my earliest memories is seeing it in the newspaper about a week ahead, because I went there for a magazine and it was still
Yeah, that's all they talked about.
yeah, and that's my earliest memories. I don't remember watching it. If so, for you guys, like, has your ideas of like 9/11 changed over the years? Like since you watched it then to now?
I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, when I watched it, I didn't know what that actually meant, or what terrorism was. Just something bad had happened. And it was important, because the neighbor, which was also my cousin's brother-in-law, which is why he came in. It's like, holy shit, are you seeing this?
So I say this was the first sort of idea that we had what terrorism was. It was the first sort of attack of Al Qaeda and Bin Laden. It was the first time they were in the news and they were doing an attack.
Yeah, but like, I wouldn't grasp that at far. What's happening?
the cat attack chair.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think like that didn't, like 9/11, the terrorist attack. I remember seeing it on TV, but I don't think it was like until years later that I understood what actually happened.
it was kind of like I saw bad thing, or I saw accident thing.
Yeah. Can I go see cartoons now?
Can I watch cartoons now?
Leave me alone, cat.
So for you guys, is it how many years later till you started like not looking into it, but kind of having a more adept idea or concept of what actually happened? Was it kind of going towards like your your like primary school
I
era?
don't know. Okay, cat.
I think the cat has a very good idea of what happens.
I don't know, cause like I know people like look into it because conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never cared about that. So I mean, again, I knew what happened because every year it's talked about on the never. How do you say it? Not birthday.
Anniversary.
Anniversary, yeah.
I mean, well,
So, like, I think it's more seeing it every year, news about it, more than myself going and do research on it.
so it's like, I know it's not in the same even ballpark, but it's like every year you have Remembrance Day, for example, who you remember like war veterans and things like that.
In a way, yeah.
So it's on the news every year, so you learn just by osmosis what the fuck's happening.
Yeah, it was more
Whereas for a lot of people, it's a hobby. It's an obsession about what happened, but not necessarily like looking at the people's lives and kind of who died. It's more of a
George Bush did it.
George Bush, tinfoil hat wearing people, which as I will get on to later on, a lot of them have quite a lot of good basis, as in like what I found doing the research for this, it's been really interesting to see a lot of really intelligent people using their intelligence to kind of fix a problem or see a problem, and a lot of other clever people trying to defunct it.
Yeah.
Like it's really interesting, and I know it sounds bad, but I was quite interested in seeing what people thought, and as we go on, like what the official story is in comparison to what other people believe happened.
Well, conspiracy theories are interesting, just because like
Yeah.
there's a secret that you don't know about, but I'm about to tell you. And you're like, what is it? Tell me.
It's
And
like
then
it's like a
some are
floodgate.
crazy.
It's like a floodgate where it's like
And the thing is conspiracy theories do exist.
yeah,
Well,
some of them
bunch.
are actually, we can probably all agree there's some out there where you like there's no reason why not to believe it.
I mean, some of them have been proven.
Yeah.
Like, was it with Nixon? Was it Watergate?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, technically, before that was proven, it was a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And same with what happened afterwards with the Iraq War, with the government lying to the UN and to people to basically go to war. That's before it was
but
proven. That was conspiracy theory.
the only reason you go to war is because it's so profitable for everyone involved.
Money.
Which
Not everyone. The people at the top.
yeah. Which, as I allude to now, one of the big reasons why people believe that the government did 9/11 was because they wanted to invoke another war, because there was so many years of nothing.
Yeah.
That they needed another war. A lot of people do forget that our society is built on wars.
Yeah.
That's true.
Unfortunately, your medications that you take, your antibiotics, your penicillin, a lot of like really amazing medical ideas come from going to war and having to find out something to stop people from dying. So
yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Those are the only ones where you can make something and you have to make it readily available. Whereas if it wasn't in war, they'll find it, patent it, and charge you £10,000 for one treatment of it. It's wrong,
Well,
but that's the world.
depends.
That's the world.
If you're in America, sure. If you're in the country that actually has
Healthcare, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably one. That's probably, if I'm honest, it's one of the top 3 things about the UK. Is the NHS is pretty amazing. Let's be honest. To be able to walk into somewhere and just be like, right, I've got a problem, and then you just go right, and they'll just fix you, and you're not going to have to worry about being in debt for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I say, conspiracy theories are going to come along a bit later. So I want to get into more of the official story of 9/11. So I'm more talking about not in depth what I'm not going to be talking about who, what, and where in terms of who was on a flight or what they were doing or anything like that. It's more of the bullet pointed,
like a brief outline.
a complete. It's not a brief outline. It's an in depth and just not in. It's just kind of.
The timeline.
It's a
What
timeline.
happened.
Yes, that's the word.
Yes.
Timeline.
So
Right.
smart.
Well, I don't know about
5 minutes ago, I didn't know what. Couldn't say it.
that. Anniversary. So, a timeline of the official story of 9/11 based on the commission report published by the US government goes as follows. At 7:59 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767 with 92 people on board, takes off from Boston's Logan International Airport en route to Los Angeles. 8:14, United Airlines Flight 175, a Boeing 767 with 65 people on board, takes off from Boston, is also headed to Los Angeles. So you've got two very similar, basically 2 same aircrafts being flown with, they weren't full, but quite a few people on board. So
Yeah, it was a smaller plane, not like the really big ones.
oh yeah, it's no fuck off, Fly Emirates double winged amazing
Yeah.
thing. It's still an aircraft that goes 500 miles an hour that you don't want hitting something.
Yeah.
And at 8:19 a.m., flight attendants aboard Flight 11. So that was the first one that took off at 7:59, which had the 92 people on it. Alert ground personnel that the plane had been hijacked, and at the same time, American Airlines notifies the FBI, standard protocol. 1 minute later, American Airlines Flight 77. So this is a separate flight. So you've got Flight 11 with 92 people, Flight 175 with 65 people, and now you've got Flight 77 with 64 people. Takes off from Dulles International Airport, which is just outside Washington DC, which is a Boeing 757, so it's not as big as the other two, but still,
It's still a big plane.
a fucking plane that's gonna hit something, it's gonna do a lot of damage, and that's headed towards, you guessed it, Los Angeles again, and that's 64 people on. So you've got 3 aircrafts in the air
Yeah.
with lots of people. And 8:24, hijacker. I'm just gonna put parentheses. These are the hijackers are the names that the FBI have, well, the American government said these are the people.
Yeah.
No idea how they made the assumption, but this is what they say.
I'm guessing they had a ticket.
Yeah, they did. So
that's the name that was on there.
This is their
Could be a
passports match
fake.
as well.
Could be a fake. Yeah. Probably is.
It's because they don't know who did it for 1,000,000%. This is kind of an estimated guess based on the idea that further investigations later on,
Yeah.
when they looked at who was learning to fly and things like that, these are the names that all tied together to make the biggest case for.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go based on what they say. So at 8:24, hijacker Mohammed Atta makes the first of 2 accidental transmissions from Flight 11 to ground control, apparently in an attempt to communicate with the plane's cabin. So you've now got the hijacker in the cockpit trying to contact ground control. And then it wasn't for another nearly 15 minutes that anything happened. And at 8:40, air traffic controllers at the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, so when I shorten it, it's going to be FAA, alert North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD. Who the fuck comes up with these names? These are terrible names.
It's American.
Yeah, Americans like to make sure that they feel like they're important. So NORAD, Northeastern Air Defense Sector, needs, another shit name, about the suspected hijacking of Flight 11. In response, needs scramble 2 fighter planes located at Cape Cod's Otis National Guard base. All of these are really fucking weird names. So Cape Cod's Otis National Guard base to locate and tail Flight 11. So Flight 11 was the second plane to. It was the first plane. So obviously they've covered the most distance.
Yeah.
So, so they scrambled two fighter planes and to locate Flight 11. They are not yet in the air when Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower. So they weren't quick enough to apprehend.
That's another thing that I've heard about, and I think
No,
Edward
we won't.
Snowden talked about on Joe Rogan's
We won't
podcast.
go into. I know what you're going to get into, but we won't go into. We're going to stick to the official story.
Can I bring a conspiracy theory?
No.
It's less of a conspiracy theory. It's more like a failure of the government to stop
Well, I mean,
what they knew could happen.
the exact same day they were doing tests and they were doing a whole scheduled plan for that day where nearly all of their fighter pilots were the opposite fucking end of the country doing a drill. So this is where people. Okay, no, not getting into the conspiracies.
I've got two theories.
Right? No. We're going based purely on what the official story is.
And then can we do our theories?
Yes, this is what I've got planned. I've got it all planned. Don't worry, guys.
Go on.
And then 1 minute later, United Airlines flight 93, a Boeing 757 with 44 people aboard, takes off from Newark International Airport en route to San Francisco. It has been scheduled to depart 8 o'clock, around the same time as the other hijacked planes, but they were delayed a bit. Mohammed Atta and the other hijackers aboard American Flight 11 crash the plane into floors 93 to 99, so the plane's fucking huge, of the North Tower of the World Trade Center, killing everyone on board and hundreds of people inside, so instant dead. It wasn't even...
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? You're working, and then you look at the window, and you see a plane going towards you.
It's...
Like, how fucking crazy is that?
I mean... I think everyone would kind of find it interesting for about 5 seconds. Because that plane looks really low. That looks quite cool. It's coming closer.
Wait, what is it? A plane?
And then that's coming closer. It's coming closer.
Guys,
and I'm dead.
Well, what is kind of scary? Going on a sidetrack, I live right next to the runway, practically, of the airport, Luton Airport. And even when planes have to abort landings, and they fly like really low in my house, and you can when we're up in 4, you can see all the windows and everything. It's flying really low in my house.
Different thing is they're not trying to crash.
I know they're not trying to crash, but even seeing the plane that low was kind of scary.
Tim,
I would think that would be cool, because I would think,
it was cool.
They're landing or aborting, huh?
And also, Tim, they're not looking to crash a 757 into your house to create another world war. I mean, they could.
Well, the Al Qaeda wasn't trying to create a world war. They're just trying to create.
No, it's the US government. But anyway.
So at
8:50,
conspiracy theories.
White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card alerts President George W. Bush that a plane has hit the World Trade Center. The president is visiting elementary school in Sarasota, Florida at the time. So when you see on the video, this is not conspiracy, this is what happened. When you see on the video, he was really into reading and learning for young kids. So he was at an elementary school, sitting there on a chair, reading a story with them. And it's really lovely. But as you look around the room, all of the advisors are all getting a little bit, what's the word, like kind of nervous, and you know that there's something going on. But when he whispered in his ear that something happened, George's face is kind of like, fuck. Like, he's really worried, but he didn't frighten the kid, so I quite like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought something was strange.
No, Tim, no.
No, go on.
I know.
No, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, so as Mitchell said earlier, all the fighter jets were the other side of the country.
Yeah.
The president was out of office visiting a school reading. So this sounds like it was planned. But
it's almost like the president has a schedule to do lots of shit.
I've tried my best to keep it onto the official story.
How is that weird? The president does like charity stuff and like go visit schools and shit all the time.
And not only that, is it he was really into education among young children, so it was fairly often that he would be visiting places. So
that's not weird at all.
It's not weird at all.
I'm sorry, go on.
And at 9:02, after initially instructing tenants of the World Trade Center South to remain in the building, port authorities officials broadcast orders to evacuate both buildings via the public address system. An estimated 10 to 14,000 people are already in the process of evacuating. So a lot of people were like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Yeah. Which is fair enough.
You're right too.
You're right, you're 100% right. And then a minute later, the hijackers crash Flight 175 into floors 75 to 85 of the South Tower, killing everyone on board and hundreds inside the building again.
Yeah.
And then, so at this time, from 7:59 to 9 minutes past 3, so little over an hour, you've already got 2 planes that have crashed into the World Trade Center, and everyone dead on board, and everyone dead on the floors, on those floors.
Yeah.
And you've now got a potentially, they didn't know at the time, but you now have got 2 other planes flying around.
Yeah.
It was a scary time. And so a couple minutes later, the FAA, try and test myself, Federal Aviation Authority, yes, that was correct, bans all takeoffs of flights going to New York City or through the airspace around the city. So they already knew that this is fucked. They need to stop things happening now.
I mean, before this, nothing like that had happened before. Not
No.
quite that big.
No.
On such a big city.
The FAA was quite quick, really. In under 10 minutes, it was already responded to, plan come up, and they knew what they were doing, which is great, which is really good. The Port Authority closes all bridges and tunnels in the New York City area, so everyone who, so all the bridges, metro system, everything was closed off. It just so. I think about it in my head like what the purpose of that would be, because surely you'd want to get people out of the area as quick as they can. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Because this is the official story. I'm not too sure.
Some people or some terrorists were on the ground on New York City in the ground and wanted to make sure nobody would get out of the city. That could be a possible suspect.
Yeah.
It was less like
It's damage control, basically.
damage control.
Yeah.
Also, not because like one thing is evacuating, because like the island of Manhattan is quite big.
No, it's fucking huge. Well, it's not fucking huge, but the population density and the actual building density is ridiculous.
So one thing is like evacuating a area. I'm not sure where the World Trade Center is, if it's in the north or like in the middle of the island. I'm not sure, but one thing is to evacuate that area and surrounding area. To evacuate the whole city, which is I think 10 million or nearly 10 million people.
Oh, it's huge. The population density is crazy. So
I think that would cause a way bigger panic and more casualties, not from the attack, but also from people doing stupid shit while trying to run away.
And if you imagine,
because panic makes people do.
Oh yeah, definitely. Stuff. And not only that, I'm just thinking now you've sprung that in my head. It's more of a case of if you have everything open. Not only people are trying to get out,
they're trying to get in.
You've got people trying to get in
because they don't know what's happening.
And if you imagine a bunch of ants and they want to get somewhere, they all travel together.
Yeah.
So you have loads of people on the metro system cramming themselves into it, and they just require one person to blow it up, and they've got the casualty has just skyrocketed. Yeah. Okay, now I kind of, we don't know if this is the case, but we can kind of theorize.
Yeah.
So at 9:21, the Port Authority closed all the cities, all the bridges and tunnels. 3 minutes later, the FAA notifies NEADS, NEADS, of the suspected hijacking of Flight 77 after some passengers and crew aboard are able to alert family members on the ground. So they've managed to make contact.
How do you make contact? Because like.
Yeah, that's another one, a conspiracy theories thing.
Sure, this is before onboard Wi-Fi and everything.
No, most places don't have Wi-Fi.
So
small ones, right?
No, this is 2001. So there wasn't a commercial airline having the facilities on board to be able to contact people via mobile phones for a few years. Yeah. So this is one of the conspiracy theories: is how did they contact the ground, and especially as if you've listened to some of the recordings that were made from the people who contacted their family members, it seems really staged. As in, instead of you just sat there. Because if you, like, for example, you contacted me and say my flight's been hijacked, you're fucking panic screamed and you're. Whereas
that's fair, but what if it, like, one thing is like you're screaming, it's been hijacked, but that will alert the hijackers. What if you're just trying to be as calm as possible, not to alert the people that were trying to kill you? This is happening. Get help.
Yeah. What I do is I'm gonna.
And again, people react to stress situations very differently. I know, like, same like when somebody close to you dies, like screaming and crying hysterically. But like people like just kind of going into shock and like having an emotion whatsoever.
Yeah.
And people find that weird, but really just a different reaction from what you think is normal.
Yeah, because exactly, it's like you say, it depends on how you deal with it. I mean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the clip now of one of the people's response. So have a listen to this.
We've got a very dramatic audio timeline of the morning of September 11th. Some of these audio tapes became declassified just last year. Combined with what was previously released, these tapes offer perhaps the most dramatic timeline of the moments the hijackings were taking place. We hear voices of people on the front lines, including a flight attendant on board a hijacked plane. We're going to start with her. Betty Ong. She was on board American Airlines Flight 11 at 8:19 a.m. Eastern Time. This is just about 27 minutes before that flight hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. She called her colleagues on the ground. This is the first time that anyone outside those planes finds out what's going on. Let's listen to Betty Ong.
The cockpit's not answering. Somebody's stabbed in business class. And I think there's mace that we can't breathe. I don't know. I think we're getting hijacked.
Just 5 minutes later at 8:24 a.m. Eastern Time, just 22 minutes before impact on the North Tower, you hear the haunting voice of the lead hijacker, Mohammed Atta. Boston Air Traffic Control picks up his voice in the cockpit as he's talking to the passengers. Listen to Mohammed Atta.
Is that American 11 trying to call?
Buddy, we have some planes. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're returning to the airport.
And who's trying to call me here? American 11, are you trying to call?
Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make any move, you'll danger yourself and the airplane. Just stay quiet.
Just incredible to hear the voice of the lead hijacker, Mohammed Atta. Now, just over half an hour later, at 9:02 a.m. Eastern Time, air traffic controllers trying to figure out what's going on with the second plane. This is United Airlines Flight 175. Follow the purple track here. It has already looped south of New York, heading north toward the South Tower of the World Trade Center, and two air traffic controllers practically narrate the impact. Take a listen.
Hey, can you look out your window right now?
Yeah.
Can you see a guy at about 4,000 feet, about 5 east of the airport right now? Looks like he's...
Yeah, I see him.
You see a guy... Look, is he descending for the building also?
He's descending really quick, too, yeah.
Well, that's
2,500 feet now. He just dropped 800 feet in like one sweep.
That's another situation. What kind of airplane is that? Can you guys tell?
I don't know. I'll read it out in a minute. Another one just hit the building.
Wow. Another one hit it hard. Another one just hit the World Trade.
The whole building just came apart.
Holy smokes.
Take you forward to just about a half hour later, 9:28 a.m. Eastern Time. You've got air traffic control trying to track United Airlines Flight 93. Cleveland Air Traffic Control is trying to get another flight, American Airlines Flight 1060, to help find Flight 93, but that Cleveland controller picks up some audio from inside Flight 93. If you listen carefully, you can hear people screaming, and listen very carefully, you'll hear someone seemingly saying, "We're all going to die in here." Listen.
That's American 1060.
And of course, just minutes later, that plane hits the ground in southern Pennsylvania in the town of Shanksville.
Now, basically, you guys have listened to what the in-flight cabin was. So we're gonna move on, but I'm gonna let you, the listener, kind of decide what you feel is.
I thought you were going to fit it for us. So
No, we're not important. So
that hurt more than the plane hitting you.
Wow, Rita.
Okay, that was
We should ignore Rita.
That was a bad joke. I'm sorry. Please get rid of it.
So, this is 9:24. They've managed to contact the ground. 9:31. Speaking from Florida, President Bush calls the events in New York an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
Apparent.
Okay.
Okay.
To be a terrorist attack, it has to be political. When he says apparent, he's not sure what the motive is other than killing people. Is it political? Is it just could be because like there's such thing as what's called when terrorism from people within the country, home terrorism, something. Because there's different types of terrorism. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I mean, I think the reason he's put apparent terrorism on our country is because he doesn't know the particular motive. So all he's doing is saying there's been a terrorist attack. It's quite apparent that there is. It's not
an attack.
So you could split that off into three ways. You can say apparent terrorist attack. So that is, it's not an accident. You definitely know that something's up.
Yeah.
Most likely terrorist. So it's more than likely an attack on our country. So you can split that off into three different ways. You can look at it as a terrorist attack and a terrorist attack on America. So it's all politically driven to these terrorists hate America instead of these terrorists hate the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
So they're already pushing this vibe of, terrorism versus America.
Yeah, there's a political sense to it.
Yeah, of course, there would be. So 6 minutes later, hijackers aboard Flight 77 crashed the plane into the western facade of the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., killing 59 people on the plane and 125 military and civilian personnel inside the building. So at this time, in less than 2 hours, you've already got, 2.5 hours, you've got 2 plane attacks into World Trade Centers.
Yeah.
And you've got 1 that goes into the Pentagon. So currently, you've probably got hundreds of planes up in the air, and fuck.
Yeah.
Any one of these could be going for this, that, and this building.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to say his theory, as in it was just kind of an idea that the next target is probably going to be something like the White House or something like that.
Or the Congress, yeah.
Exactly.
So is that where you think the 4th plane was heading then?
I don't know. But I've got a theory, but I'm going to stick to what they have said. So at 9:42, for the first time in history, the FAA ground all flights over or bound for the US. So any flight has to fucking land like nah.
Yeah.
Over the next 2.5 hours, 3,300 commercial flights and 1,200 private planes are guided to land at airports in Canada and the US. So
you also have to wonder, because when people flying is terrible in itself. It's annoying, it's tiring. You're confined to a small place. It's not fun.
It is fun. Like you see outside your window. You're seeing all. I look at it from an engineering type background and think how phenomenal, like the fact that we're even flying is.
Yes, that's fair. But
okay, let me rephrase that. I, as a fucking nerd, love it.
No, I'm sure a lot of people do, but everyone gets annoyed if their flight is late by 5 minutes. It's annoying. Nobody likes it.
Is your concept the reason they flew into the World Trade Center is because it was delayed?
No, what I'm saying is, you have to imagine what those people are thinking in their heads when they're playing. They're going to whatever, Los Angeles or Seattle or whatever, and the lands, and they don't give you a reason. So, because I thought they gave a reason right away, so people won't panic. Like, what the fuck is this?
Well, no,
why this fucking cunts landed my flight?
And
then they know what happened. I'm like, oh shit.
No, I'm pretty sure that they, what are they called? Hostesses and hosts. Yeah. It's like, don't worry, everyone. We just have to. We've been instructed to land. So don't panic. We'll give you some Pringles and some shut up material, so be quiet. And then all one person needs to do is they get a text from someone to say, by the way,
there's been an attack on the World Trade Center.
It's like, no, they'll send you a message of 3 planes already hit multiple places. Geez, you're on a plane. Panic.
Yeah.
And then they're like, fuck. I'm on a plane. 3 planes have hit.
But I'm sure the first thought on those people's head was calling guns to everyone involved in landing and stopping their journey.
It's like fuck you. I tried to get home to watch America's Next Top Model. You're delaying me.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I'm just trying to comprehend how quickly the whole America just shut down. That's a big country just completely shut down like that.
I doubt it was all of America. There's enough
the
rednecks.
Was shut down.
I think there's enough like rednecks and some like really, what are they called? The ones that live off like the land and they're like
Amish people.
Yeah,
they had no idea.
All they saw was like,
there's no cars anymore.
It's like God has given us no aircrafts in the sky. This is amazing.
They finally realized that.
And then they realized that it's like, oh, okay.
They had to realize like weeks later when they finally get a newspaper.
They finally get a telegram through. Beep, 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 beep. Yeah, I mean, like, you're going to have, like, Amish people who have no idea what the fuck's going on. But, yeah, so at 9:45, amid escalating rumours of other attacks, the White House and US Capitol buildings are evacuated, along with numerous other high-profile buildings, landmarks, and public spaces. So, this is, for a fact, in the White House, they've got this, like, booklet that's called, the US is fucked, this is what you need to do.
They have a bunker.
Yeah.
Like a war bunker, where, I think that's where Dick Cheney was commanding, though, but the response to
we'll get to that bunker later. At 9:59, the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. So plane hits. A little bit later on, collapses.
Yeah.
So at 10:07, after passengers and crew members aboard the hijacked Flight 93 contact family and friends and learn about the attacks in New York and Washington, they mount an attempt to retake the plane. In response to the hijackers, hijackers deliberately crashed the plane into a field in Somerset County in Pennsylvania, killing all 40 passengers and crew aboard. So those
people are heroes.
I was about to say, just think about those people. They killed themselves so other people don't die. This is amazing.
It's amazing. I don't know what I would do if, like, I realized that the plane would have been hijacked. I'm sure my first response wouldn't be, let's take this plane fucking back. I mean, oh shit.
My first response...
Probably start crying.
My first response would be, right.
You had a good innings?
Oh, I would have my headphones.
I had a good innings.
I would have my headphones.
I made about 7 podcasts and then Tim stopped turning up.
Yeah.
So,
like,
that was good. That was good.
That's like now most people are just looking at their phones with like headsets playing or like watching a movie and like everything's happening like
or complaining.
Why won't people shut up? Jesus. And then finally you like realize what's going on and then start crying.
Are you saying that everyone on board have got AirPods Pro, they've got on noise cancellation, haven't got the fuck clue what's going on? They just look up and go, it's like, there's someone over there, and everyone looks up from their phone and goes,
I'm sure right now some people will be like, why are they making so much noise? Just shut up. And like turn the noise, like the volume louder. And just like cover their head.
It's just like, okay. No, for a fact there's one person at the back, they had the little snuggy thing around their head and they're just like, can they please shut the fuck up? I'm trying to sleep. And then they wake up and go, yikes. We're currently doing 10,000 like feet a second down and I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yay. Woo! Woo! So, not a lot happens for about 11 minutes, 12 minutes until the World Trade Center's North Tower, 102 minutes after being struck by Flight 11, collapses. So, within,
An
Half
hour.
an
hour.
and 40 minutes.
Within half an hour of each other, both towers gone.
Yeah.
So at 11 a.m., Mayor Rudolph, I've got a cat in my face.
Mayor Rudolph? No.
Yeah.
I thought the mayor of New York at that time was Rudy Giuliani. Was he elected afterwards? Yeah, that's Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
That's Trump's attorney. The one that goes on TV and says all the crimes they've committed.
So whatever name she just said calls for an evacuation of Lower Manhattan's south of Canal Street, including more than 1 million residents. So it's not 10 million; it's probably about 5 million in total.
I think New York City has around 10 million. I'm not sure what the island. New York City is the Manhattan Island, and the Brooklyn, I think, around, and Queens and whatever.
So, including more than 1 million residents, workers, and tourists, as efforts continue throughout the afternoon to search for survivors of the at the World Trade Center site. So, by 11 o'clock, both towers are down. Pentagon has been hit. All flights are down. All people on board the flight that crashed into the field is dead.
Yeah.
And they're in recover mode. Let's start trying to save people. So firefighters, emergency service people flocked to the World Trade Center as soon as they can to help out. There are stories where people will have retired or live 100 miles away. Their first thought is put the uniform on and just go.
Yeah.
Which is
fantastic.
Amazing. So at 1 p.m. at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, President Bush announces that U.S. military forces are on high alert worldwide. So this is where some people get really frustrated with Bush, as in he took quite a while to put that into force. As in, it was the first attacks were
around 9.
Around 9, and it wasn't until fucking 1 o'clock before he decided to say, Air Force, keep an eye out, basically. That's crazy. So
I mean, I'm sure the Navy didn't just stood doing nothing. I'm sure they took matters into their own hands and start getting 9 things. Or at least I like
so the US Navy dispatches missile destroyers to New York and Washington, and that was at 2:51.
Never mind then.
So, and then between 2:51 and 5:20, not much happens outside of the ground zero where they're all trying to save as many people as they can.
Yeah.
So at 5:20, the 47-story 7 World Trade Center collapses after burning for hours. So the building had been already evacuated in the morning, and there are no casualties. Though the collapse forces rescue workers to flee for their lives. It's the last of the Twin Towers to fall.
Yeah.
So although they didn't directly get hit, the flames
from the fallout
made it fall essentially.
Yeah.
So now, if you imagine, you've got this terrible fucking Twin Towers collapsing, and now you've got another building that's fallen down.
Yeah.
If you lived in New York at a time, you would be fucking petrified that what's next, essentially. So, at 6:58, President Bush returns to the White House after stops at military bases in Louisiana and Nebraska. So this guy's on a fucking he's on a trip around the US at this point in Air Force One before he gets back to the White House. So this is where a lot of people don't like the way that President Bush was taken around. They didn't let him go straight back to the White House because they thought that he was next. Essentially, he was the next target.
And apparently that was an order from Dick Cheney.
Yes. which there's a whole conspiracy theory there, but we won't get into it just yet. So President Bush addresses the nation at 8:30, calling the attacks evil, despicable acts of terror, and declaring that America, its friends and allies would stand together to win the war against terrorism. So even without knowing that it is 100% terrorism, it's terrorism. There wasn't any,
real doubt.
So that is the official story timelined on what happened that day. Obviously there's stuff that happens afterwards, but these are the key events.
Yeah.
So the two top conspiracies about 9/11. So there are a lot more conspiracies, but these are just kind of the top two that happened. So conspiracy number one: when the two towers fell, people believed that the reason that it fell was because aviation jet fuel, which was ablaze on many of the floors above and beneath floor 75 on the south tower, and which was the impact zone of the aircraft, and floors 93 to 99 on the north tower, basically melted the steel structure, causing all the weight above it to become unstable and collapse.
Don't believe it.
So the theory is the jet fuel burns at around 800 to 1500 Fahrenheit, which is not hot enough to melt steel, which melts at 2,750
if you actually
Fahrenheit.
Actually researched, you'd see nobody's claiming that the steel melted.
So how did the tower supposedly collapse due to the steel giving way?
Well, first, the steel didn't melt. It weakened. And it's not, that's the thing, like, the jet fuel didn't burn for, I don't know how long, don't ask me how long, but for like an hour or something. And then ceased, and there was no more fire. In that hour, everything in the building has caught fire. That's floor, desks, paper, shit everywhere that's on fire. And while they did not melt,
and if you imagine this is
enough that the weight of the remaining floors above the fire created pressure enough so the tower would collapse.
Yeah.
It's not something, it didn't melt. And I think the first thought that why it collapsed, people that hadn't been investigating anything yet, well, obviously, everything melted. And that's not what happened.
And if you think, this is pre, internet databases on everything. There was... Back there, 2001 was a time where computers were a part of everyday life, but to file tax returns, paper. To send off applications, paper. So
everything was paper.
You had reams and reams of drawers,
full
of paper that, as we all know, burns really easily.
Plastics burn, wood from desks and chairs and the floors burn, the carpet from the floors burn,
and
everything.
And if you have
inside.
a look, because of the way that the towers are designed, yes, Timmy, the columns are built to have this fireproof material around it.
Yeah.
So basically, if there was a fire, it wouldn't affect the steel inside. But from a lot of the documentation that I've seen over the years, they've done repairs, they've kept up with modern times, but some of the fireproofing had disappeared. So whether or not that's a person going along and having to check the steel to make sure it's fine, they've taken a bit of patch out, and all it required is
it just deteriorates with age.
Fire to get through it. And if you imagine, at that time it was well over 2 decades old, 3 decades. Like some of the steel could be 4 decades, 5 decades old.
Yeah.
That's not to say, however, that the steel wasn't up to standard, because it was. It was still up to standard. but it still isn't as good as the 2001 new steel that they would have to put in buildings.
True.
So how did it? So why would it have given way? Why would it have melted? Why would it have?
Again, I don't think it melted. Even
so, if it did melt, what happened to that steel?
it just weakened. Because steel, if you try to melt steel doesn't go to completely hard, and the second it turns at that specific temperature, it just melts.
Okay.
It weakens for a amount of time. It weakens, gets weaker and weaker until the 5,000 degrees.
2,750.
Until at that point, then starts to melt. But 1,000 degrees before that, it's already weakening and turning like. Right. Yes. You know the red color that from like steel when it starts to like getting heated up. So that means the steel is weakening.
So are you saying it's like when a blacksmith is doing work?
Yeah.
Like you.
It's not melting, but it's weakened, which is why you can like flatten it and turn it whatever. So from a senior engineer from the American Institute of Steel Construction, steel loses about 50% of its strength at 1,100 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So
therefore,
again,
the weight of all the floors above it would just go. So if you imagine, it's like if you've got a piece of paper, right? If you've got a piece of paper and you've got something on top of it, on its own, it's fine. You add some water onto it, it goes through.
Yeah.
You add fire to it, it's going to be okay for a little bit, and then it's just going to fall through.
Yeah.
Steel is obviously not the same as paper, but if you imagine, the principle's the same. It's going to be fine, and then hit a threshold where it's going to go, right, I've got all this weight on top of me, and
I'm not as strong as I was.
I'm not as strong as I was. Is this a metaphor for life?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to give away to all of the weight and pressures.
So, if you imagine you've got all the floors above it pushing down, you've got a weakened bit of steel. Is that your final answer?
It's my final answer and the correct answer.
Tim? I'm not saying if it's correct or not, but what's your idea?
Your argument.
My argument is that the tower's collapsing wasn't caused by the plane. I reckon there were separate explosions in the tower which may cause it to collapse.
Tim,
Okay.
Tim, that's idea number 2.
The tower.
We're
Okay.
talking directly on the steel beams themselves being affected. Why would they have given way?
I don't reckon they will give way. My theory is I reckon they would have given way.
Why?
Because steel is maintained for that steel structure was made to withhold like that sort of stuff.
True.
So I still.
But again, that steel is weakened.
I get that steel has weakened, but I still don't reckon it's still weakened enough for it to collapse like that.
So
And if you imagine, we've got all of the fireproofing around it,
Yeah.
and they know these were built to withstand
Yeah.
these pressures.
Yeah.
So why
They would build to extend the pressures. True. They weren't built to get hit by a plane.
they were?
Yeah.
They actually were.
Wait, what?
I've seen the documentation.
They were built to hit by a plane.
Bearing in mind the buildings were built many years before,
Yeah.
but they were built to withstand a direct hit from a 747. That's
Really?
That's what the steel was designed to be. It was supposed
When was the 747 invented?
the 60s.
And they didn't change planes.
No, this
Until-
is bearing in mind the 60s, you could jump on a plane and go. The 60s aircrafts are so similar to aircrafts nowadays.
See, sure, but they've been updated.
Oh yeah, they've been updated, so they might be a bit quicker. But the
Even the construction has. But that being quicker means bigger engines.
But also,
but if you imagine a 757 and the planes that they were hit by were smaller than the biggest aircrafts back in the 60s. So this is the idea of how if the towers were designed to withstand a direct hit, which they were
From a 747.
from a plane, yeah,
There's
and
several different types of planes.
No, it's from a 747. It was a big plane. So if they and when you look at it, when you look at the towers themselves, they actually survived the hit. It didn't actually cause that much damage.
Just a hole in it.
Which is where my theory.
Hold on. Which, if they got directly hit, right?
Yeah.
That steel was supposed to withstand it. Like, if there was no fire, those towers would still be standing today. So, this is where the people.
Was it like? That's the thing. Was it put to sustain that amount of damage for a certain long time to be able to evacuate the building? Because there are structures, for example, for earthquakes where they're built to take the hit, sometimes enough time so that people can get out, but at some point will collapse or break.
No, this was designed that if it got hit, it would be fine.
Where is that? I want to see that.
You can find it on the internet.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So the actual towers themselves were capable of taking a hit. However, I'm about to. So, what was your your theory is that it got designed to be hit. It can take the hit.
Yeah.
And
I reckon there was more explosions actually inside the tower, which caused it to collapse.
Okay.
Where's the proof of that?
I'm going to get to that in a moment. So, what I called it an answer, but it's not necessarily an answer, but it's based on pure science.
Yeah. What
Rita said was true. Steel loses nearly half its structural rigidity at 1100 Fahrenheit, give or take. Yeah. Depending on the rust of the steel and things like that. Therefore, of all the floor weight above it, on top of already weakened steel, when you see steel, I've seen a video where someone did a test. They put a steel beam across. They put a lot of weight on top, more than easy can take it.
Yeah. They
put a fire pit below it, and when it reached 1300 degrees, bearing in mind that this was a brand new piece of steel, so it was about 1300 degrees. What the steel didn't melt, it buckled, it twisted.
That's another thing that I have.
So if you imagine, they at that point they stopped the experiment because they proved their point. But if it kept burning and twisting and twisting and twisting, the top of it will then twist.
Yeah.
And that means you've now got all these floors above it that have moved and that are pushing directly down and everything else. And then you end up with like a sandwich effect where it goes like this. And then going on to your planned explosives theory, whilst the towers were collapsing slightly before, on some of the videos you can clearly see puffs of dust coming out below from floors below. So if you imagine you've got these floors at the top, 10 or 15 flights down, there's these puffs of smoke getting pushed out like a planned explosion. So you can clearly see puffs of dust below where you can clearly see puffs of smoke, dust bellow out of some of the floors of the tower below the floors where the fire were ablaze, leading to the theory that there are eerily similar to explosions that are used in planned demolition jobs. Does this confirm an ulterior motive or something more than the plane just crashing?
Yeah. That's what I believe. I don't reckon the planes were the initial cause of the collapse of the towers. I reckon there were explosives in there, planned by the government.
Okay.
And I reckon the planes were a decoy. I reckon the planes were sent from the government to be like a decoy, and the explosions what really caused the damage.
Okay, that's a credible, good theory. I mean, if you think about it, if they've seen pictures of exposed steelwork, for when I talked earlier about the fireproofing, it's not out of the realm of possibility to potentially put material in there. So I can get the idea. I can see that. So your belief is maybe the fires helped a little bit, as in terms of fire is going to make the situation worse. Don't get me wrong. So your theory is that those explosives are planted, done by I say secret organization, but I'm going to say secret organization, so it sounds cool. So you're saying that a team went in there, which I will get into, I will back your theory up. You're saying a separate team went in there. I'm showing you the answer. Your theory is that there's a team that went in there, set this up.
Yep.
For planned demolition, which, if you've actually seen planned demolition videos, they're very similar.
Yeah, scarily similar.
Yeah. And years before 9/11, I can't remember the year, but a truck was in the underground car park, got put in there, and there was an explosion that happened, and no one knew that was. Not many people know that happened. So if a truck can go there and explode and not many people know about it, the likelihood is you can easily send in a team of people, maybe during the night, or have someone who has like maintenance access to plant explosives. So you're saying that because of how eerily similar it looks to an actual demolition job, it was kind of it's a meme, but it was an inside job.
Yeah.
Continue. Have you got...
I've got nothing more to add. That's my theory. Simple and short and sweet.
Rita? Planned explosives.
What do you think?
Simple yay, nay, or maybe?
No. When would I have put the explosives there? Because to collapse a tower is not... It's a big job.
Yeah.
So it would have been hard on an extremely populated place to just put explosives without nobody noticing and nobody calling the police. Because remember, this is a conspiracy theory that no one knows about, only the top people. So if somebody called the police and said, I think they're planning a bomb at World Trade Center, surely they wouldn't call the people at the top, so the president, hello, President Bush, I just got a call saying there's bombing, what should I do? They would go to the place and investigate.
Not if they were involved, and this is the idea.
So everyone was involved. The whole police in New York of that area was involved.
No, I think the theory comes from if the police's first initial protocol is to call the FBI or the CIA or bomb disposal, and they get alerted to the high up, say, if you imagine it as a business, if you have a problem, if I came there and I did work for your company and there's a problem, you'd contact me.
Yeah. So
if someone calls the police to say there's a bomb and they're like, right, shit, I need the bomb experts in, you contact the guy at the top, and if he's involved with the whole conspiracy, then they can go in there and just
why don't they just contact the bomb squad? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
bomb squad.
But then if they get contacted and they could turn around and say,
okay, fair, but wouldn't that call be on record?
Well, why it might be, but there's so many documents that the government don't want to release about 9/11. It could be there. Okay,
what about the whistleblowers that have turned around and... Because, like, again, I mentioned where Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
He had access to a shit ton of files that he released about conspiracy theories, which was... what he released about was the government spying on everyone. But there are a lot of people would have had access to that conspiracy theory, and I don't believe anyone wouldn't say anything, even years after, because people do say stuff.
Yeah, okay.
They do send shit to the press about stuff like that.
let's turn it on its head. If, for example, your whole family is threatened to say, "Do not say anything, otherwise they die," then you go and whistleblow, and you now have a car accident that wasn't your fault. And there's been conspiracy theories in America for decades where when someone says something, oh no, the train just so happens to go across at the right time to take their car out.
But people still come out with stuff.
Yeah, but if there's only a handful of people who know what's going on, and only a handful of people can access those documents, you only need to hogtie and kind of stop those hand people.
Accomplish what they're saying, which is somebody planted bombs in 2 World Trade Centers without no one knowing. That's not a handful of people to complete that. Without nobody seeing anything.
So do you know the...
And if, surely people that do believe in conspiracy theories would come out years later saying, actually, I saw somebody weird putting stuff there the day before.
Have you ever seen the movie Man on the Wire?
No, I haven't. No.
So I honestly do not know if this is based on a true story or not. I think it might be, but they in the movie they managed to sneak into the World Trade Center and build and put a line from one side to the other without anyone knowing. So are you?
Isn't there a movie with?
Yeah, it's called Man.
John.
It's called Man on the Wire.
No, what's his name? Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think there's in there.
But my point essentially is there is ways that they could have done it.
Let's document it though.
But I'm gonna squelch Tim's conspiracy with hard evidence.
Is that still about the pups thing?
Once the towers start collapsing, if you think if you think like a pancake, if with your hand, if you do that, don't do it too loud. But if you do that, what releases from either side? Whatever air was here gets pushed out.
Yeah, this is what I have.
So, once the towers started collapsing, if you think all of the weight above it started smashing down all together, all of this air that was in these floors that have been crushed have been taken down stairwells, down floorboards, things like this, and all they do is they get pushed outwards. So if you've got all of this rubble and debris and everything like that, all this air is going to take this and throw it out.
Yeah.
So although the floors might be collapsing 15 floors above it, down here is where the air is getting pushed because of the force is so great.
Yeah.
Where it needs to go, travels all the way down, and the easiest place it can escape, maybe 10 floors below it, pushes all this crap outside. That is science, but not necessarily the most exciting story in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I can't remember. What was your response to the steel didn't melt, it just weakened? You don't believe that at all?
No.
That steel weakens.
I believe that still weakens, but in this case it's a strange one because the towers were built to withhold this. So I don't think this.
Okay, the towers. So I searched for that and I found an article. The towers were sustained to being hit by a plane.
Yeah.
But they weren't sustained to then the plane start a fire that would spread to everything that's in the building.
This is what I mean. It's like it was strong enough to withhold it, but I don't know if it was.
So you don't think that after starting a fire, the steel wouldn't weaken at all?
It would weaken, but not as much as it did. It's my theory.
Is your idea that okay? No, so going based on what you said, your idea, which I'm not saying you're right or wrong because there's no right or wrong here. This is just kind of.
No, I'm just trying to understand that point of view.
Your point of view from what I've taken is
because you used to believe that.
Yeah, until
we've had a conversation like months before this.
Yeah. So,
we're fighting in
Tim's from tell me if I'm wrong. Your theory is that there maybe weeks, days, months, whatever time before there were explosives put in amongst the key elements of the tower.
Yeah.
So where the major supports are, there were plant explosives put, and then wires basically were able to be hidden behind whatever. And so the US government or someone, it doesn't have to be directly them, but someone crashes it into the World Trade Center, and then they left it for a little bit, clicked the bomb, they all went, and lo and behold, terrorism flew a plane into the World Trade Center and it collapsed because of it.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, no, that's fine. The thing is, that is actually like that's.
I just don't know nothing.
That's,
Why the plane
that's
then?
because
What's the point of the plane? Why not say
because
a man
plane
bomber just went in, broke in like,
because
or a gas bomb,
it's
or
symbolic.
anything.
It's symbolic. Planes.
It's a terrorist attack.
Planes
They
are.
want to kill people. That's their symbol. It's we can kill you. And you
Planes
can't do
are
anything
symbolic
about it.
in the sense that they symbolize freedom. They symbolize travel. They symbolize everything that is good in the West, where you can jump on a plane, everyone can enjoy themselves, and it's also really, really looks good on the news. How many times have you watched those planes fall? How many times have you seen that planes hit?
Every time.
And then all you think
Once
is
a year.
terrorist hit. Whereas if there's a suicide bomber, you wouldn't see the suicide bomber. You would just see the explosion that it caused. Whereas you're seeing the direct impact. It's symbolic. So yeah, no, it's because planes are symbolic.
Then why the bombs? If they wanted to use the planes as symbolism, once they hit the towers, even if the towers didn't collapse, it's still a huge thing. Seeing if two planes flying into New York, into two of the most famous buildings at the time, the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
Why the bombs then?
Because
If it's about symbolism, why not just the planes?
well, the planes were there as the symbol, but the bombs were the ones that done the damage. So everyone looking at thinking, oh, the planes caused that.
But the planes did cause that. At least not the collapse. You're saying it didn't cause the collapse. But
No.
you see the planes going into the buildings.
Yeah, you see the planes.
So
going-
there's still damage. There's still a lot of people dead, unfortunately.
Yeah, but what I can't see is how can a plane go through that steel structure, go all the way through? Because
But it did.
I didn't.
Not all the way through, but it went in there.
you got.
There was a hole
I
in
remember
there.
watching a video on YouTube of the nose in, nose out theory.
Okay, I don't know that theory.
Theory goes, based on...
Was that when it's green screen?
So the theory goes, if you watch certain videos on YouTube that are unedited, there is, if you look at it from one angle, it looks like the nose of the plane, it goes out the other side of the actual World Trade Center. So if you imagine, it's like, if you see the actual World Trade Center, the plane goes in,
Yeah.
and from another perspective, another angle, it looks like the nose goes through,
Yeah.
which is not physically possible because the nose of an aircraft is so weak that as soon as it hits one thing,
Yeah.
the nose stops looking like a nose and it just gets crushed. So
Is there actually evidence other than just videos that probably are shit in terms of quality?
So the videos is all we can go off. But the nose in, nose out theory, it goes based on a completely another conspiracy that I didn't want to go through because it's a whole podcast on its own, which was the US government covering up or creating the whole hysteria around 9/11. I'm going to really briefly say what it is. there's so many videos and so many news articles and so many news outlets that covered 9/11
Yeah.
that a few of them look very fishy. One example is the BBC coverage of the day already said World Trade Center 7 is down, has collapsed.
Yeah.
Yet the screen just behind them is showing a video of it already. It's just still standing. And it wasn't until minutes later, like 10, 15 minutes later, before it collapsed. So...
Okay, fair, but could it have been the transmission was late?
It's because in the video, but do you know they have the screen behind them?
Yeah.
That was what it was showing. So it was so long that a transmission delay isn't going to be 10 or 15 minutes delay. And the way he described it was exactly how it ended up happening. And then their reaction was also delayed. So the woman goes, World Trade Center 7's down. 10 minutes later, oh my God, World Trade Center 7's down. It was almost as if it was staged. So
this sounds more like a mistake than conspiracy.
And this is why there's a whole podcast you can do on this. I can do a whole podcast based on what revolves around it, because there is so much to 9/11. What I wanted to do in this podcast was show a balanced opinion, because it doesn't matter if
hearing it does sound like a mistake.
Because it doesn't matter about the conspiracy theories, because people died, and I'd much rather learn more about them.
That's fair. I think some of the conspiracy theories are like so ridiculous, and at points disrespectful to what happened, that I want to understand why they think that is. Because from what I've seen, and again, I'll admit I haven't researched a ton into this. Most of them are media reactions that stick like years after the steel melted, which didn't.
Yeah, and do you know what?
Because there's no.
For me, I've done so many years of research in terms of looking just at the conspiracies. In terms of, I was looking at the conspiracies themselves and kind of backing my own theories up. Doing the research for this has kind of debunked them, a lot of them for me, which is great. But I think we're still on a precipice where no matter...
I might be wrong. It's like entirely possible that in 20 years somebody will actually come out like, it was the government. It's possible. I guess it's not impossible.
Well, if they do, then...
And if that happens, they're like, well, I was wrong. But right now, there's no concrete proof.
If they do, it's not going to be... You're not going to have Donald Trump coming out and say, by the way, guys, this is all a cover-up. This happened. Because it's not going to happen.
No, it would be another whistleblower.
It'd be a whistleblower. But then the government will come out and just say that they were crazy.
I don't think that would happen, though.
Or they'll say... That's not what actually happened. This is what happened. How many times have you seen the movie trope of the crazy conspiracy theorist that no one believes?
Again, that's a movie trope.
Yeah, but then that's because it's based on reality. You can conspiracy theories, conspiracy theorists, no matter how closely they are related, are all going to be. You're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, you're all tinfoil hat wearing weirdos.
That's because most of them don't have proof. I don't think that's...
Yeah, but some of these do have proof. So there's one documentary I'm going to actually get you to watch, where if you watch it all the way through, they analyse the news coverage, they analyse so many things that if it was just you knew this, you would think it's true. And not only this, is they actually have their own evidence to back their own theories up.
Does that own evidence, does it actually hold up though?
It depends.
Once you put it against the evidence that says, actually, no, that didn't happen, does it still hold up? Because I've seen a similar documentary about
some
flat
of it
Earth.
doesn't. Yeah, some of it does, some of it doesn't.
I've seen a documentary about flat Earth, and they put a whole bunch of evidence. Actually, some of it that contradicts itself. But at the end, when you
Yeah,
look
but flat
at
Earth is something completely different because we all know it's absolutely fucking bullshit. Because
well, it's a conspiracy theory like any other. Until you have concrete proof, to anyone sounds crazy. To them, it sounds like we're crazy people in the sheep. I guess.
I think we're actually quite. We're probably one of the better people for us to do this type of podcast because we're all open-minded enough to say. We're open-minded enough for conspiracy theories,
yeah,
and also closed-minded enough to say this is absolute BS.
I'll have to see that documentary to form an opinion on it. But like, I'm sorry, Tim. Like anything that you said about, there's no proof of it.
Yeah.
If everything that I said, there's an actual report about it, and you can argue that the report is fake or not, but he was made by people that have studied that, the engineering and physics and whatever, all their lives. And they put a ton of work into it, because one of the reports that I'm reading didn't come out until 2005, so that's 4 years after what happened, and studied it for 4 years and said, this is what happened. And yes, people have said this, but actually that doesn't hold up.
I found what it's called. It's called Loose Change.
Loose Change, okay.
They've made a few versions of it, but the best one is the latest one, which is from 2000. Well, 2015 is probably the best one. If you watch it,
yeah,
it will open your mind in a sense that you'll probably watch and go, the thesis and the evidence holds up in that perspective. So based on that, it's like if you're doing your homework, it gives you. They say this is your topic. Find evidence for that topic, and it works. This works.
Yeah.
But then if you take that topic and then put it in the broader perspective, then your evidence doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's what conspiracy theories are.
Yeah.
It's looking at something to prove and you find the evidence to prove that point. But if you take that point and put it in the broader perspective, sometimes it still holds up, and then you're like, fair enough, you win. Or you just go, this is complete bullshit. All you're doing is taking the evidence to prove your point.
Which is what I think most of it. Again, I haven't seen the documentary.
Yeah, definitely watch it. It's called Loose Change. Definitely watch it.
Evidence in the building should have withstand the plane crash.
If you had that,
that's true. But what about the fire?
Well, if you had that as
we have a video of a nose going out, and that's impossible. Okay, what's the quality of that video? Is there any more videos that prove that? Could it be just optical illusion? Because it happens, and we know filmmakers know how to make something bigger than what it is, smaller than what it is, look weird on camera. It's not impossible, and that can go for both ways: faking the attack and proving it.
There's another conspiracy where all of the home video, in quotation marks, all the ones that are uploaded as like, hey, I was a guy with a camera recording this.
Yeah.
The majority of them work in the media industry.
But and that's fair. But when you think about it,
and so when you
someone who's in the media industry, a journalist or cameraman, their first instinct might be record of this, while other people would be running away. And if you see now where everyone has a phone with a camera, most people's first instinct is to film something, not to run away, which in situations can be extremely stupid.
And so, this is what I was talking about, conspiracies. You've got... Your point is trying to prove that it was a conspiracy.
Careful too.
Leave the radio. Your point is trying to prove that your conspiracy... You're saying that 9/11 is a conspiracy. Yeah. So what you do is you go to this. You go, how do I prove my point? Here's 10 bullet points that I want to try and prove my point with. So you go, right, who made those? So you go, you've got these videos, and I don't think they're right. Who made the videos?
Yeah.
The media industry. The people, a lot of them were in the media industry. How easy it is to falsify those videos. not hard. You just fucking CGI a plane in and you look good.
I don't think anyone would have CGI so available at that point.
No,
without costing thousands.
No, but this is one of their points is they have the access to do it. So
not all of them though.
No, well, that's the thing. A lot of when I looked through some of the research, and this is what I try to have a balance of opinion. When I look through the research, some people actually are animators by trade who've done these recordings. So so the conspiracy theories are,
yeah,
the videos we see are only from these select people because they can falsify it to make it their own thing, because they're trying to cover up this bigger thing that it was actually a missile instead of a plane.
That's fair, but how good would it actually good? Because even now, people who work in special effects industry put out special effects for big productions and they look garbage. So in 2001, which is 18 years?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it is.
When we watched, before we started this podcast, I showed you a clip from the War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
And my first thing was,
it's fake.
We're like, we know this is CGI, and yet it looks really real, but it looks too real. Back then, it looked shit. So it's...
Even with good effects, the human eye, for some reason...
Can pick it up.
That's fake. That's real.
100%.
And sometimes you can't quite pinpoint why that's fake.
But you do.
But you do.
Yeah.
So I think, again, if that was actually fake, people... especially like experts in special effects and who work with special effects every day of their lives would know that's fake.
100%.
And I doubt every special effect artist in the world would be quiet about that being fake.
No, and that's the thing. The conspiracies that I've looked at throughout this entire time have, in their own vacuum, work.
Yeah.
And some of them still work on the broader perspective, but I think we're not really ever going to know what exactly happened outside of the written 9/11 report published by the government.
Yeah, I'm sure there was stuff that they hid away, especially response times to the tragedy, like.
Oh yeah.
Because I've heard conspiracies that, like, I think again, Snowden mentioned on the Joe Rogan podcast how it is possible that they knew that something could happen weeks before, but they didn't know anything about it.
Yeah,
I think that's a really big one. And if that's true, I think that's horrible.
That's bigger than a conspiracy itself.
Yeah.
The conspiracy about a fucking nose that fell out the other side means nothing.
That one person has video of.
Multiple people do, but...
Of the nose thing?
Yeah.
There's more than one.
Yeah. No, it's more important than any of that bullshit.
Is it possible that, like, separated from the plane, like, broke? And no, that wouldn't work.
Can you see why this is such an interesting topic?
It is. Tim, conspiracy dude, what do you think of what we said so far? Wouldn't a special, like, if it was fake, wouldn't somebody who knew what they're talking about would have said something? Or wouldn't you would be able to notice, since we can notice
if it's
CGI?
If it's done well, you won't be able to notice.
What? That's not true, though.
That's not true.
You see movies with CGI all the time, and you can tell when it's CGI or not.
So if you're on Instagram, I'm not trying to prove anyone a point, but if you're on Instagram and you see this bird who has amazing tits and she looks beautiful and you amaze the scenery.
When you said bird, I was thinking of a bird, not a woman.
No, and then, but you know, although you look at it and go, wow, she's stunning, this, that, and the other. You know for a fact it's been airbrushed and made into perfection.
And again,
but you can tell. You know, in the back of your mind, you're going.
Again, this is
tits never look that round, and you know your face is never gonna look that perfect.
This is 2001.
And
it's not like now where you can do deep fakes and it's fucking crazy.
And Photoshop, don't get me wrong, was around then.
Yeah.
But the limit of what you can do on a commercial computer was
This is the year where Spider-Man was made, and you can tell that he's not swinging on one hand at all.
But yeah, no. So when there's
speaking of Spider-Man, do you know the first trailer that they released or tried to release had the Twin Towers in it, and they had to scrap it and like do another one.
Oh my god, what was it?
It was like the helicopter was caught between the Twin Towers, and then unfortunately the attack happened, and they had to take it out of there. I don't know if it actually.
What was the movie? What was the movie? My friend at work said when he went to Disney World in Florida, they were showing this movie. I can't remember what it was, but the ending of the movie, the towers fell in the movie, but they had to redo it.
Yeah.
I can't remember for the life of me, and because he said when he watched it, it was before it got changed.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Oh, I watched the original version, and now you can." In the special edition, it's in there. I can't remember what fucking movie it was. I'll have to have a look, but
yeah. Also, I saw a video about Friends where the attack happened while Friends was on air, and they never mentioned it. Even though Joey apparently one time he was like seen with the firefighters like shirt and everything.
Oh wow.
So it's not the finish, but Tim has to go, so we're going to say goodbye to Tim. Me and Mitchell will continue this debate without our conspiracy theorist to be around.
So I just need to. What I think what we're going to be doing now is I'm going to be talking more about this. I'm going to be talking about the stories of some of the firefighters and the emergency service people, just because. Although we love the conspiracies and although we like talking out of our arse about this, that, and the other, at the end of the day, we have the people that are on the ground doing the hard work are those emergency service personnel who risked their lives and also died trying to save people. So what I want to do is just kind of reflect more on them and what their stories are.
We haven't touched on when the World Trade, the 7 building fell.
Yeah, no, it's like I say, the whole 9/11 itself as a symbol, as a thing, is absolutely massive, and I could have easily done a million different things.
Yeah.
But I decided that I think doing it this way covers more topics and also has the biggest amount of discussion.
Yeah, that's fair.
So what I'm going to do is that we're going to now start talking about the stories of some of the people of 9/11.
And to recap, Tim has moved away to Wales.
Yeah,
Tim's
gone.
We won't hear from him for the rest of the podcast.
Ironically enough, I've got a cat called Timmy, and he's replaced. So if you hear a meow, that's as much as Tim would normally input in this podcast.
That's mean.
It is.
That's true.
But do you know what? It's so far into the podcast, so if Tim, you're listening, please can you just send us a picture of a cat or something so we know you've got this far, because most people don't. They usually get 10 minutes in and give up.
That's true.
So
we don't have a big fan base. We're not famous yet.
We're not famous yet. So story number 1. So this is I've taken it directly from Business Insider, purely because I didn't want to change how some of it is written or take it out of context, so I've just taken it from it. So story number 1 was of a 24-year-old equities trader helped at least a dozen people get out, and then he went back in with the firefighter to save even more lives. So based on that headline, he's already a fucking legend.
True.
So just a few minutes after United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower of the World Trade Center, 24-year-old Wellies Crowther called his mother and calmly left a voicemail. His voicemail went as follows: "Mum, this is Wales. I want you to know that I'm okay. So imagine if you get that. Imagine if you're a parent and your family member or your own son or daughter or washing machine or whatever you identify as is now
Let's not get into that.
Let's not get into that's for next week's episode. No, joke. Is currently involved with one of the worst tragedies of all fucking time.
Yeah.
And just to know that, I bet that must have been the best feeling in the entire world. If I'm honest, that must have been amazing for her mum, for his mum to know. So, Crowther was Crowther was an equities trader at Sandler O'Neill and Partners on the 104th floor. So he was very high up. So if you imagine if it collapsed whilst he was still there, he would be definitely gone.
Yeah.
On the 104th floor. But after that call, the man who was a volunteer firefighter in his teens, made his way down to the 78th floor sky lobby and became a hero to strangers known only as the man in the red bandana. So he went from 104th floor, went all the way down to 78 and saved people, really. No way of going around it. Amid this, so he says, amid the smoke, chaos and debris, Crowther helped injured and disorientated office workers safely risking his own life in the process. Though they couldn't see much through the haze, those he saved recalled a tall figure wearing a red bandana to shield his lungs and mouth. So the people he saved, and that went on to tell his tale, recalled a person with a red bandana covering their mouth, basically going around just saving people, like just making sure they all get into the elevator. Well, not necessarily the elevator, get into the stairs, helping people get down, and just like anything that a normal person wouldn't do. Like your first reaction would be, "Fuck this shit, I'm out."
Okay, so to be fair, he had some kind of training because he used to be a volunteer firefighter. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I felt he was probably trained not to panic on those types of situations, and he knew what to do when a lot of people wouldn't know what to do. Like, because in your head, if something happens, you don't go to the lifts, you go to the stairs, and calmly you walk down. Yeah. But when actually something is happening, all of that just goes out the window, and you're panicking and you don't know what to do. And even if you wanted to help people, I don't think you would know what to do it without also hurting them by accident, even. Because
if you put yourself in his shoes, obviously you wouldn't know exactly what you had done, but what would you have done? So you're on 104th floor, the plane's hit many floors below you. What would your reaction probably be, other than fucking run and just get out of there?
I mean, I would like to think that I would help people if I could, but probably
the reality,
I would panic and try and get out as fast as I could. Because like even the thing of like covering his face, so he wouldn't inhale like debris and more smoke. Not a lot of people would think of that.
I mean, well, you say that. I think you probably would. Like, okay, let's
not with like an actually piece of cloth, like put their hand in front of their face,
or put their their shirt like over their face. I mean, if you think, like, when you look at the many years afterwards, one of the biggest causes of people dying was smoke inhalation. Yeah. So, although it should have started to be removed or mostly removed, a lot of the floors still had asbestos in the actual building, and all the debris full of decades of dust and like dirt and debris all got
just the chemicals from the jet fuel like evaporating into the air.
It all just got soaked into your lungs, and so many people have got cancer and died from it years later.
Yeah.
So obviously you wouldn't know that initially, but you would know that there's something in the air that's probably going to kill you. And the fact that he stayed there and just started keep helping people is just amazing. So he came down to the 78th sky floor, sky lobby, an alcove in the building with with express elevators meant to speed up trips to the ground floor. In what's been described as a strong, authoritative voice, clearly from his years of firefighting, he knows if he says it in a particular way, in a very
calm, but at the same time strong way, like
I mean,
get the fuck out
through
that way, please.
I mean, if you think about it, like, I look at it from, if you're like a director in a telly show, if you're, the worst thing to do is to panic and just like, you don't know what you're doing. But if you tell people in the exact ways, in a very authoritative manner, it runs smoothly. And this is probably what he knows. Like, I try to put it in perspective where people can kind of understand. Like, if your boss tells you to do something, and you know he ain't got a fucking Scooby-Doo what he's doing, the likelihood is he's going to go, you do this. Whereas if he turns around, and even if he had no idea what to do, tells you very calmly, and like, right, you're doing this, and this, you believe them. Yeah. Like, he might not have known exactly what to do in that state, but if you do that, it calms people down. I think that's great.
Just staying calm, I think, in a situation like that, where everyone around you is panicking, you're panicking, and you see someone staying calm and giving instructions how to do it, I think immediately that itself has a calming effect on everybody else.
Oh yeah, 100%. So Crowther directed survivors to the stairway and encouraged them to help out others while he carried an injured woman on his back. After bringing her 15 floors down to safety, he made his way back up to help others.
That's something I don't think I could do
at
all.
You've literally just saved yourself and someone else by going down all these floors, by seeing probably people burning alive and people suffering.
And some already dead.
And some people already dead. And your first thought is to scratch yourself. No, Timmy. Your first thought is to go, right, what I need to do now is go back up.
Yeah.
I think at that stage, 99.9% of the population
no
would
matter
go,
how much you want to help people, you think, I'll just help this person down and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Because 99% people, I imagine, would just go, right, I'm safe. This person I've helped is safe.
Yeah.
I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So he went back up to save others. Everyone who can stand now, Crowther told survivors while directing them to a stairway exit. If you can help others, do so. He's definitely my guardian angel. No ifs or buts. Because without him, we wouldn't be sitting here waiting until the building came down. Surviving Young told CNN. Crowther is credited with saving at least a dozen people that day. Crowther's body was later recovered alongside firefighters in a stairwell heading back up to the tower with the Jaws of Life rescue tour, according to MIC. So he literally died to save others.
Yeah.
Like, that is an amazing story. I mean,
it makes me even more sad. Because, well, nobody deserves to die.
No. Well,
except the hijackers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, apart from them,
I'm sure there was at least one jerk in that tower that pushed past people to get himself to safety first. And that's hard to judge because again, he's saving himself.
Yeah, I think in that scenario, as long as you're not putting if he's going down, okay. Imagine a situation. If you're running down the stairs and you're pushing past people to save your life, providing you're not hindering others, like being like fuck you and push you down the stairs, fair enough.
I imagine something like that
probably
happened.
I saw a video. There's on YouTube. You can have a look. There's 9/11. What is it called? Basically, there's a video of a guy that has a camera who's went while 9/11 was happening in that an hour and a half period. He took a camera and he followed everyone, as in he went inside the building whilst it was on fire upstairs.
Yeah.
He went. You can see everything in stunning quality, and it makes it so real.
Yeah.
Because there's even one point where you see someone fall in front of him, obviously jump from the window.
Yeah.
And he, and when you watch that video and then put yourself into the story we just told, I could never, I know it sounds bad, but I could never see myself going back upstairs ever.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. And it's crazy when you think about like putting yourself into their shoes. I'm gonna try and leave as many links as I can in the description of all the videos I've watched, so people can actually get an idea.
And remember, those people that jumped out of the window, they knew they weren't going to survive that fall. They just didn't want to be burned alive.
How crazy is the fact that falling to your death is the best outcome you could have? Like, what must be going through your mind? Like,
I mean, yeah, you're choosing.
You're choosing your own death.
You get burned alive, or you jump and hope you lose conscious halfway down and don't feel anything.
I just don't. But I just don't.
It's crazy having to make that choice. It's insane.
Imagine if that was you. You're sat there, you know you're going to die, and you're having that conversation with yourself to like, I'm going to choose my way out. Is probably the I can't comprehend it. That's just too crazy. So I got story number 2. So story number 2, if I can get my fucking phone working. Story number 2 is of a group of strangers teamed up to take back United Flight 93, preventing the plane killing untold numbers of people in the US capital. So as we alluded to earlier during the story, this is the one that flew into the field. So this is elaborating on what we said earlier. At approximately 9:28 a.m. on September 11th, 2001, United Flight 93 was hijacked by 4 Al-Qaeda terrorists. After the terrorists had stabbed the pilot and the flight attendant, the passengers were told that a bomb was on board and was heading back to the airport. But this was after 2 planes already hit the World Trade Center, and the passengers of United 93, huddled in the back of the plane, were beginning to find out the real plan was. Beginning at 9:30, several passengers made phone calls to their loved ones. Quote, Tom, they're hijacking planes all up and down the East Coast. Dina Burnett told her husband Tom, a passenger on United 93, in a cell phone call at 9:34. They are taking them and hitting designated targets. They've already hit both World Trade Centers. In another phone call, Tom learned from his wife that another plane had hit the Pentagon. We have to do something, Burnett told his wife at 9:45. I'm putting a plan together. Other passengers, including Mark Bingham, Jeremy Gilk, and Todd Beamer, were learning similar details in their own phone calls as the plane was barreling towards Washington DC. So at this current moment, you've got a load of people huddled at the very back of the plane, speaking to their loved ones, basically informing them that this is the shit that's already gone down, and they're not saying it, but they're going for their head, to going, we're next.
Yeah.
They've got no 2 ways about it. They know they're next. So the passengers voted of whether to fight back against the hijackers. Led by the 4-man group, the passengers then rushed the cockpit with Beamer rallying them in his last words, "You ready? Okay, let's roll." From The Guardian, from 9:57, the cockpit recorder picks up the sound of fighting in an aircraft, losing control at 30,000 feet. The crash of trolleys, dishes being hurled and smashed. The terrorists screamed at each other to hold the door against obviously a siege from the cabin. A passenger cries, "Let's get them!" And then there is more screaming. Then an apparent breach. "Give it to me!" shouts a passenger, apparently about to seize the controls. Instead of the plane hitting its intended target, believed to be the White House or the Capitol building, it crashed into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, killing all 44 passengers aboard.
Yeah.
That's another one of the This is a different one to story 1, because obviously their initial idea was if you can get into the cockpit, you can take control of the situation.
Yeah.
So there is hope. But to know that as soon as you have any hope of getting there, you know that it's already too late.
Yeah.
Their next thought is, let's not kill loads more people because we're going to die anyway.
Yeah, that's not a situation where I would have no idea what I would do. Because there's no immediate escape. You don't have a stairs going down to safety. You don't have an exit to safety. You're trapped in a metal thing.
You are literally in a
sardine. Miles an hour.
You're in a fucking sardine tin, traveling at like a couple of 100 miles an hour.
You cannot follow me. That was exaggeration, but.
It might, if it was Concorde, maybe. But you're in a metal sardine tin, traveling
metal box,
traveling 500 miles an hour. Probably wasn't 500, but let's say a couple 100 miles an hour, and it's in
thousands of miles from the floor.
No, it's traveling thousands of miles an hour.
A million miles from the ground.
So your next choice is what? Like,
it's not like you jumping out of the plane is not an option.
Because you can't open the...
You can't open... Well, the, what's called attendants? They have the keys. But there's no parachutes.
No. So, what's your next... So, yeah...
crazy people flying the plane.
Yeah, you have no choice. You
don't know what they're going to do next. If they're going to crash the plane into the ground, or in a mall full of people, or the Capitol, or the White House,
and that's
or the middle of the fucking sea, or a lake, or whatever.
And all of these results in your death, no matter what.
Yeah.
So you think, death already, my fate is already sealed. Let's not seal other people's. Which is fair enough.
Or these bastards aren't going to do what they want.
Yeah. Because by the sounds of it, even if they got control of the plane anyway...
I mean, there is a possibility that they would have landed it, I guess. But a very remote possibility.
Very remote. And from watching documentaries of like... people over controlling planes and stuff. If I said to you, here is a plane, land it, would you have a first clue what the fuck you're doing?
Well, I think normally they try to instruct you what to do through the comms.
But
from like base control.
From what I've seen, what I've heard, that all communications are cut off. So you're now in a position where you've got no communications, and your flight simulator training on your computer.
Anybody else? No, how to land a plane.
It's
I
like
done it once on GTA.
I played Flight Simulator once. I crashed it, but I can give it a go.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I would never. I played enough flight sims to get a rough idea of how to physically, like, you put your wheels down first and your nose, but there's 1,000 buttons in front of me. What do I press? Like on computer, I press the fucking B button and the wheels come down and it's fine. But it's not possible. Like, I think.
No, it would have been a miracle if they could have landed that plane.
I think the best outcome for them probably could have been is if they found like a body of water or something. They could have. Not even that. They would have to slow themselves down enough for them not to break up as soon as they touch it.
Completely crash, yeah.
But I think they probably did the best choice, which was let's not fly it into the White House full of. I reckon if they flew it into the White House, a world war would have started.
Probably.
Because at this point, there was the World Trade Center full of civilians.
Because that wasn't just trying to cause casualties; that was trying to murder the president of the United States.
So at this point, you've got loads of people who died at the World Trade Center, which inevitably collapsed. And you've got the Pentagon, which didn't kill that many people, but very symbolic. And then you've then got this.
Yeah.
You got this plane that's gonna fly into the White House.
And the vice president was inside the White House. They were in the bunker, but
I'm telling you, if that plane would to have hit it, there would have been World War III. I reckon there would have been.
Probably.
Which we could actually say that those people might have saved the entire world from going into another world war.
Yeah, I guess.
Because crazy Americans with guns.
There's no way to be sure that they were going to hit the White House. Could have been the Capitol.
Could have been.
Or something else. I don't know what's in DC that's important other than the White House and the Capitol. Washington Monument?
Yeah. Probably not the easiest things to hit. A big fat white building is probably the easiest thing to hit.
Well, behind it isn't there like the Lincoln? Where it's like sitting in the really big.
Now that would be very symbolic. Imagine if you. Yeah. But as we knew from the from the Pentagon, they actually hit the wrong place.
Did they?
Yeah. The Pentagon, there was only a section of it that was reinforced.
Yeah. And
that was the section they hit. They could have hit anywhere else and it would have done so much more damage. But yeah, so story 3. And this is the last story. 2 former US Marines put their uniform back on and searched through rubble and that could have collapsed at any moment. They found 2 survivors. While the planes were hitting the World Trade Center, 27-year-old Jason Thomas was dropping his daughter off to his mother in Long Island. When Thomas heard that what transpired, he changed into his Marine Corps uniform he had sitting in his trunk. He was a former sergeant who had been out of the corps for a year, and sped towards Manhattan. Someone needed help. I didn't matter who. Thomas told AP. I didn't even have a plan, but I have all this training as a Marine, and all I could think was my city is in need. Around the same time in Wilton, Connecticut, David Carnes was working in his office at Delotti, watching the attack unfold on TV. "We're at war," the former Marine sergeant said to his colleagues before telling his boss he might not be back for a while. According to Slate, he went and got a haircut, changed into his marine.
Sorry.
I knew you was
got
gonna
a
point.
haircut.
I knew you was gonna point this out.
What? I'm sorry for laughing. That's what?
I mean, I think there's strict rules that you have to have for it.
You're going to save people. I doubt after saving a bunch of people.
It's like,
You know, what you did was great, but you didn't have your haircut. Get the fuck out of
I
here.
think your quiff's a bit off, mate. I don't. I'm sort. You're not doing too well, are
Are
you?
you wearing a ponytail?
It's like, what are you doing, mate?
That's so... Okay.
So, said to his colleagues, he went and got a haircut, changed into his marine uniform, and drove to New York City at 120 miles per hour.
How much is that in kilometers per hour? Because I don't...
Right, so let me convert this into
miles.
stupid language. So,
Excuse me? I'm sorry that we don't measure our stuff in feet.
well, I mean, we kind of do. We don't. We do miles, feet, inches, centimeters. Everything's wrong.
Sure.
To be fair, the UK is actually probably the most fucked up country
Okay, nearly
in terms of like.
to 100 kilometers per hour. That's fucking crazy.
So
How far is Connecticut?
no
from New
idea.
York?
But the UK is really fucked up when it comes to measurements. As in, that would be my coffee cup would be in milliliters, and then I'd have liters, and it might also be in pints and gallons.
It's a mess. The UK, it's a mess.
I could measure this table in inches, centimeters, or millimeters, but then I might cut it in feet. It doesn't make sense. And when we're learning in school, half of maths is learning how to translate everything to make it work. So you need to know how many millimeters into a centimeter into a meter. How many does that convert into inches to feet to gallons?
No, we only convert from millimeters, centimeters to meters. That's all you need. That's kind of easy.
Yeah, not everything.
Everything else is unnecessary.
I mean, like, everything we do nowadays tends to be in centimeters and meters, but like, I still measure myself in foot. Like, I'm 6'1".
Ridiculous. I'm a meter and 63 centimeters.
Yeah, but that's because you're small. So,
I'm 5'3". I've learned today.
So when someone asks you what height you are, as a British person,
I'll probably go. Well, I could say 163 centimeters.
Can you translate that?
Well, no.
Now you know 5'3".
On my document, so in my ID, it's in meters. So that's where I tell them.
So weird. Anyway, yeah. So he said he travelled toward New York City, 120 miles per hour. Once both Marines reached the collapsed towers, the site now covered in ash and debris. So obviously, the time they got there, it's already been collapsed, which is fine. As in, it puts the haircut into context.
Yeah, it's like, they haven't collapsed yet. Let me get a haircut.
So,
I'm sorry, that was weird. That was a waste of time.
I mean,
I'm guessing he cut himself, like, cut
he didn't
his
go
hair.
there to get a fucking pedicure. He went there to just like, right, geez.
You're still losing like 10 minutes shaving your hair off.
Yeah, you just put your foot down to 125 miles per hour.
That's it. Maybe he cut his hair while driving 120 miles per hour. Oh, I would be okay with that.
Do you think a man can multitask? No. Okay. Once they reached the towers, the site is now covered in ash and debris. They began searching for survivors, but at first they found each other. They had little gear with them besides flashlights and a military entrenching tool. AP reported. Along with other first responders, the pair climbed out of the dangerous field of metal, concrete, and dust, calling out, United States Marines, if you hear us, yell or tap. According to Stripes, when they reached a depression in the rubble of what had been the South Tower. He said, I thought I heard someone, so I yelled down, and they replied back that they were New York's Port Authority police officers. They asked us not to leave them. Carnes told Thomas to get to a high point to direct the rescuers to the site, then called his wife and sister on his cell phone and told them to phone and give the New York police his location. The two officers, William Gimno and Jonathan McLovin, were on the main course between the towers when the South Tower began to fall, but made it into the freight elevator before the collapse. They were alive but seriously injured, trapped approximately 20 feet below the surface.
Jesus.
20 feet. Okay, let's try and translate this into stupid language.
It's not stupid, you're stupid.
So, 20...
Whoever invented the measuring with feet is stupid.
20 feet in meters is 6 meters.
Okay, that's
So...
like 7 people sucked on top of each other.
4 of you?
Is it?
1.6.
It's not 7. That'd be like very small people. No, yeah.
1.6 times 2, 3 times like that. So yeah, 4 of you.
I'm good at math.
So
yeah.
So 4 readers deep.
Yes.
They were okay. Now we're getting context. According to USA Today, once they heard voices of the Marines, Jimmo began shouting the code of the officers 813. After they located amid unstable amount of debris, it took workers roughly 3 hours to dig out Jimno and another 8 to reach McLovin, who was buried further down. So they basically dropped everything they had in their life to help out. So although there was so much bad, it goes to show there are good people out there willing to help.
Yeah.
And I managed to leave it on a positive note. Yeah, buddy.
Sure.
Essentially, we've learnt 3 things today. There's good people out there.
There's bad people.
There's bad people out there. And Tim's just never here.
Tim's not here. Tim was never here. It's just Mitchell doing a different voice sometimes.
Yep. So yeah, final thoughts.
I mean, what is there to say? Honestly.
It's
that we haven't talked about. I mean,
the whole conspiracy aspect.
We could have gone on and on about this.
The whole conspiracy aspect is interesting, but I think as a society we've kind of taken we've taken 9/11 and broke it down into so many different elements to prove our own opinion and rationale. But I think we all, in our own ways, rightly or wrongly, usually wrongly, have forgotten that this happened to real people.
Yeah.
And one thing that we should all learn is, although that shit happened on 9/11, and a lot of did, as we learn from those stories, that there are always good people out there.
Yeah.
And that's the way to end it. Goodbye.
Bye.
And although we wrapped up so well, we've got to say, next week it's Pokemon.
Yeah, very in theme.
Very in theme. So we'll see you next week on another episode of Dino Pod. Maybe with Tim, probably not. Goodbye.
Bye.